comes to land ownership in Ghana, we often hear words like freehold, leasehold, customary land. What do these terms even mean? Or what does it even mean to own land in Ghana? Or who owns the land in Ghana? So land ownership in Ghana is a legal matter. It's governed by several legal frameworks. So we have the constitution, which is the primary source of our laws in Ghana. Then we have several acts of parliament. Notable amongst them is the Land Act 2020, which is a consolidation of previous land laws into one comprehensive statute. Then we have customary law, which based on our customs, traditions, and culture. So land ownership in Ghana is quite complex. It's in levels, or should I say it's in layers. This means that a single piece of land can have multiple legally recognized interests, just as an apartment can have both a landlord and a tenant having an interest, both legally recognized interest in the apartment. So there's a landlord at the top and there's a tenant, and both have legally recognized interest because the tenant has a right to live in the apartments because they've paid rent. The landlord also benefits from the apartment because they earn an income in the form of rent from the apartment. So note that when we say interest in land, it means that you have a right to use the land, or you have a rightful ownership to the land. And also in legal terms, when we say land, it's not just the surface of the earth. It also includes things on the land, such as trees on the land, water bodies flowing on the land, minerals beneath the earth, and even buildings or structures on the land. So note that when you put up a structure or a building on the land, the building becomes part of the land itself. So kindly note this. It will all make sense as we move along in this video. So when we say levels of ownership in land in Ghana, this is what we mean. So we have the Allodial title, which is the highest form of land ownership. Then we have freehold interests, which is below the Allodial title. Then there is leasehold interests, there is sublease, then there is customary tenancy. They are in a descending order of that sort, and each represents a different level of ownership in land. So when we say allodial title, as I said, is the highest form of land ownership and is the absolute form of land ownership, or the original form of land ownership. And so it has no superior interests and it's perpetual. That means that it lasts forever. With the allodial title, we have stool lands and skin lands. So here the allodial title is held in stools and skins. And this means that the land is owned by members of a community or indigents of a traditional area. And the chief of that area, or the traditional authority of that area, holds the land in trust for the members of the community or the indigents or the subjects of the stool. So it's called stool land because traditionally and historically our chiefs sit on stools, and among some ethnic groups too, especially in the northern part of Ghana, the chiefs sit on animal skins, and so they are called stool lands and skin lands. So the stool and the skin represents the symbol of traditional authority. So we realize that the stool and skin lands are just the same thing. They only reflect the various ethnicities we have in Ghana. Then we also have family and clan lands. Here the allodial title is held in families or clans. So a clan is like a bigger form of a family. And here too, the land is owned by the members of a family or members of a clan. And the family head or the clan head holds the land in trust for the members of the family. So here too, it represents the unique traditions and customs of some ethnic groups, where rather than stools, the allodial title is held in family structures. Ethnic groups like the Gardanbis have family lands. So the stool lands, skin lands, family lands, and clan lands, they are called customary lands because they reflect our traditions and customs, and it is based on our customs and customary laws. So they are called customary lands, and they are managed by the stools, the chiefs, or the family heads. They often set up an office known as customary land secretariats. They manage those lands. The allodial title is also held by the states, so we call them public lands or state lands. So here the land is owned by the state, and what that means is that the citizens of the country, the citizens own the lands, and the president holds the land in trust for the people. So the state or the government throughout history has acquired lands for various public purposes through its institutions, like the police. The state acquires land for the police to build police stations or bungalows for the police officers. The military, the state acquires land for the military, Ghana Airport Company, Ghana Railway Company, and there are many other state institutions. And so the ownership of those lands are in the name of the state, and so they are called state or public lands. Sometimes the state can even compulsorily acquire lands to achieve a certain public good, to build roads or to build maybe hospitals, schools, and all that. And those lands are owned by the states. So the state lands are also managed by the Lands Commission. The Lands Commission is managed by the states through an institution called the Lands Commission. We also have vested lands. So with vested lands, the lands are managed by the states, but it is not owned by the states. The allodial title is actually held in families, skins, stools, clans, what you call the customary lands, but the state manages those lands. So they are managed by the Lands Commission. So the Lands Commission has a division called the Public and Vested Land Management Division. And that division is responsible for managing state lands or public lands and vested lands. So note that the chiefs, when it comes to customary land, the chiefs do not own the land personally. The land is owned by the members of the community or members of a family. So they are called a land owning group. So the land is owned communally. It's owned communally. It's not owned by individuals. It's owned in a communal form. The chief only exercises a fiduciary role, which means that they hold the land in trust for the members of the community or the indigents of the area. And they often, because of that fiduciary role, they often lead the land sales and transactions. So it's often perceived that they own the lands. They do not own the lands. They only exercise a fiduciary role. So customary lands and vested lands are about 80% of the lands in Ghana, and the rest are maybe state lands and all that. Below the allodial title is the freehold interests, and freehold interests, just like the allodial title, grants the perpetual right to own land, so it lasts forever. But unlike the allodial title, which has no superior interests, the freehold interests is inferior to the allodial title, or in other words, the allodial title is superior to the freehold interest. So we often see that the freehold interest is subject to the jurisdictions of the allodial title. So with the freehold interests, we have two types. We have the customary law freehold, which is when the freehold interest or the perpetual right to own the land is granted by a stool or a family, what we call customary lands, to another party. So this other party can either be an individual or another entity like a family, under customary law, typically through some traditional arrangement. So the customary law freehold happens under customary law. And we have common law freehold, which is when the freehold interests or the perpetual right to own the land is acquired through formal legal processes, what we generally call common law, like the laws applied in our courts. So in the past, it was possible to acquire common law freehold from customary lands. That is the stool lands, skin lands, family lands. You could acquire common law freehold from customary lands. But in recent years, due to recent enactments, the laws has restricted, or should I say prevented, the acquisition of common law freehold from customary lands. So today, if you want to acquire common law freehold, you can only do so from an individual or an entity who already has a common law freehold, but not from customary lands. And also note that only citizens can acquire freehold interests in Ghana. So to recap, we have customary law freehold, which happens under customary law. Then we have common law freehold, which happens under formal legal processes, what the laws applied in our courts. Leasehold interests, just like the common law freehold, is also often acquired through formal legal processes. But because the law restricts the acquisition of common law freehold, especially from customary lands, you typically find the leasehold interest as the common form of land ownership. So businesses and individuals often have access to lands to they have access to lands through the leasehold agreement. So the leasehold interest is granted by the allodial title holder. So this can either be the states or the customary lands, the state lands or the customary lands, or by the freehold interests. So the allodial title and the freehold interest, they can grant a lease because they own the land forever. The leasehold interests gives the right to use land for a definite period or a specific period of time. So for citizens, you can have a lease of up to 99 years. The 99 years is the maximum, but a lease can actually be for a shorter duration. And for non-citizens, you can have a lease of up to 50 years. The leasehold interests comes with some obligations. Unlike the allodial title and the freehold interests, they do not have to honor any obligations. The leasehold interests, you have to honor some obligations. It typically includes paying ground rent. So if you have a lease on your indenture, you see that you have to honor some obligations, and it will often include paying an annual ground rent. So ground rent is like a tax, a rent you pay for having a land or leasing a land, and it's collected by an institution known as the Office of Administration of Stool Lands. When it comes to customary lands, I think for state lands, it's collected by the Lands Commission. People often confuse the ground rent with property rates because of how both are poorly enforced and how they are collected. So you find the officers move around homes to deliver letters to people. So people often confuse the two. But property rate is a tax that you pay on your building. Ground rent, is a rent you are paying. A rent you are paying for leasing a land or having a lease. The property rate is collected by the assemblies. So the metropolitan, the municipal, and the district assemblies, they collect the property rates. So people often wonder what happens if a lease ends, because it's for a specific period of time or a definite period of time. What happens if it ends or if it expires? So the leases last for a long time. 99 years is a very long time. And so the legal system in Ghana has not really seen a glut of lease expiries. But per the law, the lease should be renewed. There's an opportunity to renew the lease after it expires or after it ends. So know that you can renew your lease after it ends. There's also a concept about leasehold interests that I would like to speak about. It's called assignment. It is when you transfer your right to use a land to or property to another party. So let's say you have a land, you bought it, then you got a 99-year lease. After 5 years, you want to sell the land. What you are doing is you are transferring the right to use the land for the 99 minus 5 years. So that's 94 years to another party. So now you exit the scene and the new party or the buyer becomes the leaseholder. So they have to honor all the obligations, pay the ground rent and all that. So that's it with assignment. Sublease is when a part of a lease is granted for a shorter duration. So let's say a party has a lease for 99 years, then they grant part, say 40 years or 45 years to another party. Then that other party holds a sublease. So this is common in commercial real estate, where a developer can acquire a lease, develop homes, and sublet the homes to other parties for a shorter duration. So in the luxury apartments you often see in town in Accra, a lot of them are owned on sublease basis. So the sublease and the lease they operate in a similar fashion. So just as a lease can be assigned, the sublease can also be assigned, where your rights to own the land for or a property for a time can be given to another or transferred to another party. It can also be renewed, just as a lease can be renewed. Customary tenancy is acquiring land on a contract basis, and this is often used in agricultural settings or for farming purposes. So imagine a farmer who acquires land for one planting season to cultivate maize or tomato, and the farmer would have to pay an annual fixed rent to the landowner. Sometimes the payment can even be in a form of sharing the harvest, where the harvest can be shared in a ratio of 1 is to 1 or in a ratio of 1 is to 2 between the farmer and the landowner. I'm sure if you are involved in farming, you'll be familiar with this form of land acquisition. And if you ever want to farm in Ghana, there's a way you can acquire land to farm. So these are the various levels of land ownership in Ghana. So now, if the question is posed that who owns land in Ghana, or who are the original owners of land in Ghana? So this answer is based on my own interpretation of the nature of land ownership in Ghana, as has been discussed in this video. It's not based on any textbook or any academic theory. So if the allodial title is the highest form of land ownership or the original form of land ownership in Ghana, then it stands to reason that the Ghanaian people own the lands in Ghana. So because for customary lands, the indigents or the members of a family who own the lands, the land owning group, are Ghanaians, because almost every Ghanaian is a native of a certain traditional area or is a member of a certain family. For state lands too, the lands are owned by the citizens, just that the president holds the land in trust for them. So if that is so, if the lands are owned by Ghanaians, then why don't we get the land for free? I'm sure that's a question people will be asking themselves. You know, land has economic value, and the trustees, those who are supposed to hold the land in trust for the people, so the chief for stew lands, the family head for family lands, or the president for state land, they are supposed to use the land in a way that will benefit everyone. And so because land has economic value, that's why you can't get the land for free. And that's why even the only citizens can acquire freehold interests. Non-citizens cannot acquire freehold interests, and only citizens can citizens get a lease of up to 99 years. Non-citizens get a lease of up to 50 years. And even for customary lands, the members of the land owning group, so the indigents of an area or the family, they are called the land owning group. They can have access to the land through what we call usufructuary interests. So now when we say a single piece of land can have multiple legally recognized interests, just as an apartment can have both a tenant and a landlord having an interest in apartments. So from all what has been said so far, we can see that then a single piece of land at the same time can have an allodial title holder and a leaseholder and a sublease. So imagine a land lying somewhere in Accra with the allodial title held in a certain Ga traditional family. The traditional family grants a lease to an estate developer for, let's say, 99 years. The developer develops homes and sublets it to home buyers for a sublease of, say, 25 years. Then it stands to reason, or it means that simultaneously the land, that specific land, is owned by the traditional family because they are the original owners. Then the leaseholder also has an interest. The developer who has a lease also has an interest in the land at the same time or simultaneously. Then simultaneously, the individual homeowners also have an interest in the land because they have a sublease. So that's a perfect illustration of when we say a single piece of land can have multiple legally recognized interests. So what are some of the key takeaways from this video so far? So we know that land in Ghana is a legal matter and it's governed by customary law and modern legislation. We also know that the allodial title is the highest form of land ownership in Ghana. We've also learned that leases are the most common form of land ownership in Ghana, and individuals and businesses often have access to land through leasehold agreement. We also have seen that chiefs do not own the land personally. The land is owned by a group, it's owned communally, and the chiefs only exercise a fiduciary role, which means that they hold the land in trust for the members of a community or the members of a certain family. If you learned anything from this video, do not forget to like, share and subscribe to this channel. If you also have any comments or questions, you can put them in the comment section and I'll be happy to respond. Thank you for watching.